Hi guys, in this episode of Plummy's Thoughts Zone, I am excited to be sharing my thoughts to the third episode of the first season of the new Walking Dead spin-off, Dead City, with the episode's name being People Are a Resource. Something that I'm really starting to doubt anybody in the world of The Walking Dead actually believes, with how nonchalantly characters get killed off left and right. Both by the main characters, who are the good guys, and the villains. Both of them keep killing people, which kinda, I don't know, really feels weird, because it just feels like a waste for a character to have basically survived for like 15 years in the zombie apocalypse, only for them to die when they get involved with main characters of a TV show. It just feels really fucking stupid. I feel like by this point in the series, like, if you have survived for 15 years, you should be an unkillable, badass surviving machine, you know? It's like whether we like it or not, the world of The Walking Dead does kind of work on the survival of the fittest concept, even if the characters do not necessarily, like, go for it and still protect other characters. Due to just how much time passes and the challenges that the characters face, it just naturally happens, you know? Like, characters like Carol and Eugene haven't been saved by our group. They've survived because they've adapted. Even Gabriel adapted over time to survive, you know? But yeah, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked. This was honestly another pretty fun episode, although I am still feeling like the season is kind of spinning its wheels a little bit, because while it's still like weirdly compelling and weirdly engaging and weirdly not stilted, I already mentioned this, I'm pretty sure, in like the first episode, the second episode review, and I'm gonna mention it again, but it's weird how not stilted this series is. Like, I don't even know how to otherwise describe it, but I feel like I've been, for the longest time, like, felt like I've had to, like, go out of my way to say that the series or the universe of The Walking Dead is good. I've had to, like, justify it to even to myself that, this was still, like, an enjoyable episode. Whereas with this show, I kind of feel like I don't have to do that for some reason. Like, it weirdly feels engaging, even if I have some criticisms, or I feel like I would have been happy to get more out of an episode like this one. It still feels like weirdly satisfying enough, you know? With that said, I do feel like this episode, just like the last episode, was a little bit fillerish. Like, I feel like you easily could have combined what we had last episode in terms of plot with what we have in this episode, and it would have been fine. It would have been far more exciting, because I feel like in the first episode, we moved through quite a lot of plot, I feel like. We got reintroduced to Maggie, we got reintroduced to Negan, we had them meet, we had them head to New York, we had them arrive in New York, and we had them do a couple of stuff in New York. Then in episode 2, we just moved from the ground level of a building to the top of a building, killed a bunch of characters, and that was it. Then in this episode, we once again talk to that group, we move to a ground level place, we kill a deer, and that's it. Like, I feel like, considering that this is 3 episodes of a 6-episode season, by this point, we should have already went to the Croat's place and went after him, you know? Like, I feel like despite the fact that it's 6 episodes, it's still kind of dragging its feet. I don't know why it's that. Maybe it's because they're still, I guess, potentially planning on doing more seasons of this and not just gonna be doing 1 season. I don't really know what they're exactly planning there. But so far, it kind of feels like the plot, I guess, is more fit for like a movie rather than a TV series. I don't know, because it still feels like it's spinning its wheels a lot. But that said, again, it was a still decent and entertaining and fun episode. Lots of cool stuff. I'm definitely loving the storytelling of this episode quite a lot. Like, last episode we had The most exciting stuff was like the badass action scene by Negan. In this episode, we have another badass action scene by Negan, and he continues to be the best character of this spin-off by far. But I'm also just really liking the kind of storytelling decisions that they made in this episode and the way they did them, the way they developed characters in this. Like, I really like that. Like, for example, I really liked how the two antagonists of Dead City, Pearlie Armstrong, the Marshal, and the Croat, got introduced to each other in this episode. And the way they interacted was really cool. I really liked the action scene with Pearlie having to fight off a bunch of walkers. That was really cool. Like, I don't know exactly quite what about it is so entertaining. Maybe it's kind of like the world building aspect of it or whatever, but I don't know, it's just really well made. It kind of reminds me of like Fear the Walking Dead Season 3 in terms of its writing. It's not quite the same, but it is kind of reminiscent enough for me to where I don't quite like comprehend what they're writing, and I don't necessarily feel the same kind of level of satisfaction in terms of the writing as I do with like the main show, but it's just like weirdly captivating and compelling, and I'm really loving that. And on the other side of things, I also really like the storyline decisions that they did with Maggie and Negan's characters in this episode, where you had a scene where Negan talked about what happened in the main show with like the saviors and everything, and basically tell the story about himself without revealing that he was the bad guy in the story. I really liked that. I really liked when he was trying to comfort Maggie about her son still being alive after one of the characters which are part of the group that we met last episode kind of says to Maggie that her son is likely dead. He tries to comfort her. Then we have, honestly, kind of a heart-to-heart scene that I actually really enjoyed between Maggie and Negan. Especially I love how Negan actually kind of was self-aware and admitted that despite the popular opinion, he can shut up once in a while. And it was kind of cool to see Maggie open up to him and basically kind of accept him more as part of the group, I guess. I don't know. But that was a really nice scene there. We also got some more information, finally, about what happened with Negan's wife and kid. And thank God they didn't fucking kill them. It would still be infuriating if we don't see them anytime soon. We're definitely not seeing them in Season 1 of this spin-off, for sure. Maybe in future seasons, but not in Season 1. But I really hope we see them, because I feel like we're getting to a point with the Walking Dead universe where it becomes more and more contrived for characters to not appear in these spin-offs. It becomes very hard to believe arguments for why these characters are not appearing in the spin-offs, you know? It's like, it would be really annoying if in the Rick and Michonne spin-off, for example, at the end of it, let's say Rick arrives at like the Commonwealth or Alexandria. It would be really annoying if he ends up meeting our group, but he doesn't end up meeting them either in a recognizable location of the Commonwealth or at Alexandria or something. I don't know. And yeah, I feel like it's just gonna become more contrived for why they didn't include these actors or whatever. It's kind of like how it's a little contrived that Maggie has moved Hilltop to a new location. Because realistically, the reason why they did that is because they obviously shot in New York, so they needed a new set for Hilltop, because the original set is in Georgia. Which I feel like the writers might have forgotten or gotten confused about, because when Negan was doing the speech about the bad guy down south, he said down south. Maybe potentially the writers confusing the fact that the main show was shot in Georgia with the main show being set in Georgia, despite the fact that it hasn't been set in Georgia for like half its run. It was in Virginia, but whatever. I guess Virginia is further south than New York, so it still works. But yeah, um, I don't know. But like I was saying, it's kind of contrived that Maggie has a new Hilltop because the original burned down, despite the fact that at the end of the series, Hilltop was up and running. It was being rebuilt anyway. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really have too much to say directly about this episode. It's mostly gonna be things that I'm gonna be talking about in my notes. But yeah, there was a lot of really funny and interesting moments that I liked throughout this episode, like the deer scene where it kind of felt like the VFX artists working on The Walking Dead were like, "Yeah, we get it. We sucked at making a CGI deer. We are actually able to do that now properly." I feel like that's probably where most of the budget of this series went, making sure that that deer looked good. And it did. It did. It looked fucking convincing, I'll give you that. Um, uh, but yeah, that was a fun moment. Another really fun moment was the face-off between Negan and Luther, I think his name is, the big guy. This is the second wasted big black guy character, I gotta say. There was this big black guy in the final season of the main show. I don't remember his name, but he was one of the people that Maggie came with to Alexandria from Meridian. That was the community that she was at. Um, uh, and I really think he was wasted because he looked badass. All of those characters that came with Maggie looked badass. And yet all of them died, which was a real fucking shame. But like, basically, you know how I earlier mentioned that at this point, 15, 16, however many years in the zombie apocalypse, we are at this point, with how far in we are, everybody basically needs to be that level of badass survivalist. That's the one thing that I liked about those characters being introduced in season 11 as Maggie's friends. Like Cole or Elijah, like they actually felt like they were like main characters of a spin-off that we never saw, you know? Like they had iconic weapons similarly to our main crew. They looked badass, like they have seen and survived some shit just like our main guys. Like that's something that I really liked about them. It felt like there was a lot of character to them and everything, and we didn't really get to see much of them, which was a shame, but whatever. I'm getting sidetracked. So this is another big guy who gets wasted here because he gets killed by Negan in a way that I'm not sure whether I like or not. Because I think the scene is actually pretty well executed and everything. I think it works. I just feel like it just ended too quickly. I wish we got more of a fight between the two of them. Although, outside of the fact that it ended too quickly, and outside of the fact that it basically, the death was basically an accident, I like the scene. You know, I like everything else about the scene. It was pretty entertaining. And I love how, if you go back to like through the episode before that scene and even to like last episode, you can suddenly see that this guy was kind of eyeing up Negan for some reason. We now learn why, because he found that wanted a poster that Negan kept from the first episode. I like that kind of continuity, dude. That's pretty fun. It helps when the season is only 6 episodes and you are able to easily plan it out and not have to stretch that shit too much, you know? But yeah, another thing that I also, I guess, liked about this episode was the scene where the main girl from the group that we are with right now talks about how everything was when it first fell apart. With the fact that she and whoever she was with, I don't know whether it's a boyfriend or whatever, what their relationship is, her family, they were kids when it all fell apart. Which, yeah, when you think about it, yeah, it's been 15 years. And it's wild because when we were watching like the early seasons of the main show, like characters like Maggie, for example, was like in her mid-20s. So right now Maggie is like in her 40s. That means that Negan is bordering on like 60 at this point when you think about it. I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan is there as well, IRL. But like Negan was in like the seasons that we got him originally, he was like what in his like late 40s maybe. Maybe the most I would give him like is early 40s, but he definitely looks older than that. And now it's been like 13 years, so that definitely makes him late 50s at this point, which is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about that kind of like mentioning of what happened in these places, because it just kind of makes me want to have gotten a spin-off that was basically like the main show, focusing on a group from the beginning to like 10 years in the future over the course of multiple seasons, and see that fall slowly instead of just hearing about it, you know? Because it's cool to learn more about how everything happened in all these places. But at the same time, I would have liked to see it, you know? I want another spin-off that focuses on a group of characters just like the main show, like what Fear the Walking Dead was, you know? Obviously far more competently written, but I really want another spin-off like that, because as cool as these spin-offs that we're getting right now are, and as cool as it would be to get a spin-off focusing on like legacy characters like Judith, RJ, Herschel, etc. I also feel like some of the most entertaining parts of the zombie apocalypse are the earlier days rather than the really late days. The really late days to me are really interesting in terms of seeing the world building and how the world has evolved as time has passed. But in terms of actual like cool, dark and gritty stuff, I want to see more of like the early days, because that's just really fun, you know. But yeah, overall I think that's all I have to say without getting any kind of prompts. That's all I enjoyed about this episode overall. It was fun once again, but I feel like the second half of the season is where the most exciting stuff is going to be at, because based on the trailer for next episode, it seems like we're actually going to get some action, which I'm really excited about, and hopefully we are actually going to get some actual action, because I feel like this episode was kind of low on that, and I feel like in general like episode 2 and 3 have been a little bit low in that regard, so yeah, I don't know. Still, let's get through my notes and see if anything else that I haven't talked about yet will be among those. So the first thing I've written is Cowboy Negan. That is in relation to the fact that we got a bunch of flashbacks with Negan and Ginny after, I guess, he started taking care of her, and he was wearing a cowboy hat in that, which is a little bit weird and doesn't feel like Negan whatsoever, but okay. Next thing I've written is, man, I am really starting to love the theme song, and that is very much true. I'm catching myself honestly humming it quite often. It's, again, not as quite as like iconic and distinct as the main show's theme, but I think it actually works fine with this show being kind of like a more action adventure kind of thing, rather than melancholic walk across the world like what the Daryl Dixon show is going to be. I think it works fine for the tone that the show actually does have, you know. I'm enjoying it. I'm curious what they're gonna go for the Daryl Dixon spin-off and the Rishon spin-off as well. Hopefully they're gonna actually try to experiment and do some stuff, you know. Next thing I've written is a much better CGI deer. Like many people have already mentioned and like commented and everything, this is redemption for the awful season 7 deer. I don't know how the fuck did they let that through, honestly. And that was really funny when I saw it in this episode, but yeah. The next thing I've written is, I like that Negan tried to comfort Maggie. I already mentioned it. It was a little subtle scene with him trying to grab her arm and like console her. But she kind of ran away before he could do that, but it was still kind of cute and cool to see. I like that. Next thing everything is walkers can be used as fuel now. The Croat explained in some way that the walkers release some kind of gas that can be used as fuel. I didn't quite follow exactly what he was saying with his accent, and in general, sometimes The Walking Dead is really hard to understand, especially if I don't watch with subtitles, which I don't. When I watched the episode for the first time, whenever I decide to sit down and do reactions to the Walking Dead universe, I will be watching the episodes with subtitles, but that's gonna be like 5 years in the future from now, most likely. So, yeah. Yeah, he was apparently a scientist. He said that in the episode, so that's cool. Some more exposition. Yeah, I wish that kind of writing was used for characters like Pope on the main show, who was a fucking waste. But yeah, next thing I've written is, I am so tired of this gimmick of bad guys killing one of their own to show how bad they are. I guess people are not a resource. But yeah, that is in relation to the scene where the Croat is talking to Percy, and Pearly, not Percy. Percy was a character that died in World Beyond, which is a shame. But he's talking to Pearly and he's interrogating him. And one of the guards that is there to guard Pearly makes some kind of mistake. The Croat is mad, so he ends up killing him. I feel like this is such a fucking trope with Walking Dead villains at this point. Like, every fucking villain has to do that. He has to kill one of their own, like, soldiers or their own subordinates just to show how bad they are. And it's just kind of annoying at this point because it's such an obvious way that they're trying to make this person be the bad guy, you know? It's so blatant and it's kind of annoying, so yeah, there's that. It was a thing even in Fear the Walking Dead. I think that's why it was so fucking annoying. And it's kind of especially annoying because in the last episode we had a blatant way of like of a pet the cat writing gimmick where you have a character or a thing that exists solely for the main character to get attached, only for that thing to get killed / destroyed, so you as a viewer feel bad. A.k.a. Negan getting close to the pigeon lady, she dies, he gets mad and goes after the Burazzi. It's so blatant. Maybe it's blatant for me because I've wasted so much time on fucking TV tropes, and because I'm an amateur writer, or at least kind of try to be an amateur writer, because I don't really write as much as I want to because I don't have time with this YouTube channel. But yeah, I'm just too aware of these kind of gimmicks that writers use to get your sympathy or get your hate for a character. So that kind of frustrated me a little bit. Next thing written is, I'll write a drawing of Glenn. Which, by the way, I swear to God, that drawing of Glenn in this episode is 100% the first fucking picture of that character that you can find online. Like, literally, I'm gonna look up Glenn the Walking Dead. And if that is not the first fucking picture that is in the results, I'm gonna lose more. It's literally the first picture. It's literally the first picture from the fucking Wikia. Are you kidding me? They literally had somebody draw Glenn from that picture. I mean, I don't have an issue with that overall because I like Maggie having a picture of Glenn, or a drawing in this case. But come on, make it less blatant that you're literally taking that picture and drawing it, dude. That was just funny, you know? But yeah, next thing I've written is, okay, so they are not dead, which is in reference to Negan's wife and child. And by the way, I just want to say I'm really disappointed with the name for Negan's kid. And maybe a little bit also the fact that he has a son and not a daughter. I don't know why I care so much about it, but I would have liked it if it was a daughter. It just felt right, but whatever. But Joshua is such a generic and boring name for his son. Like, I don't know what name I would have felt to be more deserving, but I don't know, it just feels so bland. Ooh, Joshua. Like, compared to something like uh Mo from Fear the Walking Dead, or Judith, or RJ, or Carl. Like, maybe it's the fact that those characters are interesting or whatever, or that they've been actual characters that have made the names more like iconic and feel Walking Dead-ish. But Joshua just doesn't feel like an interesting name for that character, especially considering when his dad is fucking Negan. But yeah, I don't know. The next thing I've written is that Annie? I guess not. In relation to a scene where Jeannie, who apparently sneaked into fucking New York somehow. I mean, we see how she got into New York, but it's kind of crazy that she managed to survive and get there. She loses her plushy dinosaur, and a black female character ends up grabbing it from the ground. And I genuinely thought that might be Annie, who either has lost Joshua or she's carrying him with her, because I believe in literally one of the previous scenes is where we learned that Annie is, as far as we know, still alive, you know? So I thought that maybe she was going to show up in the spin-off, because we don't know whether she will or won't. I hope she would, but I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But later on, it's revealed that it was just a character who is associated with the group that we are with in these episodes. I don't know their names. I don't know if they have a name, actually, but whatever. Next thing I've written is, Burley is a badass. And indeed he is, because he managed to take down a bunch of walkers in some very badass ways. Beheading and hitting them with a boot. That was pretty cool. Next thing I've written is, respectfully, that was badass. And that is obviously in relation to that scene where Luther, one of the guys from the group that we are with, the big black guy, who I guess last episode has ended up finding that poster of Negan being wanted. He goes on to face him and basically wants to kick him and Maggie out. Because of that, Negan refuses to do that because they obviously want to go and save her show. And he goes, tries to leave the room that he is in and get away from Luther. But Luther stands in his way. So Negan respectfully gives him another opportunity to leave him alone and leave. Luther still refuses to do anything about it. So Negan goes for an attack. Luther grabs him, does a bear hug, then Negan scrapes him with a cheese grater on the eyebrows, and Luther just stumbles backwards and stabs the back of his head on a pipe, which, I don't know, it felt like the fight was a little bit too short. We should have gotten a little bit more out of it. Like, it was just too short, you know? It's the fucking beta fight all over again from season 10, you know? Like, it should have been such a much longer fight. Like, remember how big and long the fight between Dario and Beta was in season 9? This is how big this fight should have been here, you know? Give us some excitement, god damn it. Yeah, that was pretty badass, you know? I love the dialogue of this series. It's really funnily written. I love it. Next thing I've written is, so is that why he whistles? Which is in relation to the fact that because Jeannie is traumatized and she doesn't want to talk, Negan instead devises whistling as a way for her to answer whenever he calls her out, you know? And that makes me think whether this is another one of those cases where whenever we learn more about backstories of characters, usually we learn how certain things that they do why they do them, like the origins of stuff. Like, let's say if we ever started to learn more about Daryl and his backstory, we end up learning where he got his goddamn vest, for example. You know, it's that kind of shit. Actually, now that I think about it, where the fuck did he get his vest? Because I remember that Morrow had like a leather something when he was on the rooftop in Atlanta. But the first time that I can remember Daryl wearing the vest is at some point in like season 2, I believe. Like towards the end of season 2, he has like sleeves with it, and then in season 3, he has it without sleeves, I believe. So yeah, I don't know. I really liked it when it was with sleeves in season 2. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked. So as I was saying, that's why he whistles. Like he explains how because his wife was suffering from cancer, he devised the whistling as a way for her to call him out, and it makes me think about whether that's where the whistling thing that ended up becoming like an iconic thing about the Saviors came from. It wouldn't surprise me if that's what they are implying with that, but whatever. Next thing I've written is, this is likely and Clem, and I'm talking about here about the relationship between Negan and Clementine, because in many ways it kind of is. Because Lee, if you remember in the Telltale games, he was running away. Well, he didn't run away. He ended up escaping the police because of the zombies, because the car crashed. But he was a fugitive in many ways who did a crime and who ended up taking care of this little girl. And it's the same with Negan, who ended up killing people who attacked and assaulted his wife, who is on the run now and is protecting this little girl, you know? Like, that relationship is very similar to that. Like, in general, Dead City has so many Telltale similarities. I wonder if that's one of the reasons why it's so enjoyable. But yeah, the next thing I've written is, I love the music. I love when The Walking Dead straight up uses songs in the soundtracks. And here I'm talking about the song that plays at the end of the episode. It's always so cool and so impactful whenever The Walking Dead takes a song that exists IRL and uses it for the soundtrack. Like, I think I mentioned it like in the last review, but like think of Blackbird's song, or whatever the song that plays in one of the Governor two-parter episodes all the way back in season 4 of the main show. Like, whenever The Walking Dead uses music like that, it's always so fucking good. I love it. Now, this is not quite as good as those songs, because the vibe that those songs have is like this post-apocalyptic, nihilistic vibe that really, really vibes with The Walking Dead, because that's basically what The Walking Dead is. And it just feels so iconic. Whereas here, it's not quite there, but it is a similar execution, and I really, really like when The Walking Dead does that. It's always so fucking good. But yeah, that's largely all I have to say about this episode. There's one more thing that I've written down, but it's more of a funny statement that I just came up with after I watched the episode. That I just thought about, because in this episode you have Negan wearing a cowboy hat. And like I talked about in the previous review for Dead City, we got this teaser trailer thingy for the Daryl Dixon spin-off, and we saw him walking through like the fronts and everything. And people made jokes how, because Norman Reedus was the main character in the video game Death Stranding, where he basically walks everywhere. This spin-off is basically The Walking Dead Stranding, you know? That's literally what it should be called for all intents and purposes. And it also makes sense because we are going to be getting a different strand of the virus for the zombies, because we're going to be getting variant zombies. That's honestly a really good title. It's such a wasted opportunity to not call it that. But basically, what I wrote down, the funny statement that I wrote down is that if Dario's show is The Walking Dead Stranding, then Dead City is The Walking Dead Redemption. Get it? Because it's about continuing to redeem Negan's character, and because it's cowboy themed, and that's kind of basically it. But yeah, it's just a funny statement that I thought of, but yeah, I think that's basically all I have to say about this episode. It was a decent episode. I enjoyed it fine. Like, it's weird. Like, I don't quite feel satisfied by last episode and this episode. Like, I feel like it didn't necessarily feel like quite as epic and as polished. Like, the first episode was a really good premiere, I feel like. It gave me everything. Excitement, world building, character development, funny moments, epic moments. Like, everything was there. Whereas I feel like these last two episodes have felt like more weaker by comparison, which is not necessarily too big of a deal because yes, that was a premiere episode for the series, so of course they threw more shit in that one. But yeah, despite the fact that these two episodes I feel like are a little weaker, I don't mind. Like, it's still really weirdly engaging. Like, I don't know what it is about it. The main thing that I think is that it just doesn't feel stilted in a way that the Walking Dead universe has felt for the longest time. So yeah, I'm fine with it, you know? And everybody seems to be enjoying it as well, so who am I to complain about that, you know? But yeah, in terms of rating for this episode, what would I give it? I don't remember what I rated the last two episodes. I'm sorry, I have fucking terrible memory when it comes to these kind of details, which is really weird because then I would remember the most inconsequential show detail when it comes to like a TV show that I'm watching, but then I don't remember bullshit like this. But yeah, I don't remember what the ratings for the previous two episodes were. What did I gave them? But right now, probably the way I would rate them is 9.1 for episode 1, 8.9 for episode 2, and this one I think I'm going to go with 8.4 out of 10, which, yeah, you might think, oh, we're kind of going down in ratings very severely, but that's a little bit kind of confusing and not quite representative of the quality difference, I feel like. Because I don't think it's like that much of a drop in terms of the quality. This is more so in terms of how impactful these episodes feel for me, because I feel like the first episode was like really impactful because we saw these characters after all this time since the end of the series. It was really cool and I was really excited about it, and there was a lot of effort put into that first episode. And in the second episode we got the epic Negan scene with OG Negan returning, and that was very, very impactful. I feel like in this episode we didn't have anything quite as impactful, and I feel like because of that it just feels like it doesn't really hit me quite as much, thus the lower rating. Plus, the fact that I'm reviewing this episode in the same day that I watched it probably also influences why my rating is maybe lower than it would end up being, because for one reason or another, maybe because I'm getting burned out of being like a reviewer or a reactioner on YouTube. Nowadays, my opinions and stuff from when I first see them ends up being actually decently different from how I feel about it long term, you know? So yeah, maybe long term, in a couple of days, my rating would end up being higher, but it is how I feel about it right now. It's an 8.4 out of 10. It just doesn't feel quite as impactful. I feel like next episode is going to be very exciting though, so I'm really, really hyped for that. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say right now, so if there's anything that I'm forgetting, I'm just going to talk about it next time. So yeah, I am curious though, what do you guys think about this episode? So comment us down below. Let's have a discussion about this. And also, before we end this video, I just want to give a huge shout out to my currently 5 patrons on Patreon: Omar Bridgman, Deadpool, Corby Dead, Dane Harty, and Peyton Jones. Thank you guys for your support. I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to me. You have decided to support me, have continued to support me such a long time. Hope you continue to enjoy my content and continue to support me going forward. Thank you very much. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, please leave a like, subscribe. Also, check out the description to my Wattpad where I post my stories. Because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you don't enjoy my stories or simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to my Patreon or to my Ko-fi account where you can pledge your support and help get the channel going, help support me so I can keep writing stories you enjoy. But if you don't want to do any of that, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And I think that's pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!